Hello everybody, my name is Dan, I'm an animator, and this is New Frame Plus, a series about video game animation. I have a question. How do you communicate character and personality from a first-person view? Conveying character through performance is one of the animator's most important jobs. Animating proper physicality, applying the 12 principles, reinforcing gameplay, those things are all important and can be quite difficult to achieve, but they are ultimately fundamentals. On top of all of that, the character animator's job is to create appealing character performances, to visually reinforce who these characters are through movement. But how do you do that from a first-person view when you've got nothing but hands and a gun?
Back in the fight.
A lot of games don't. Most shooters' first-person animation is strictly functional, intended to clearly convey what your character is doing, but not exactly telling us anything about them. Alright, I'm shooting. Now I'm running. Now I'm reloading, and so on. Which is not to say that these animations don't tell us some things about the character. In most any military shooter, the functional gun handling animations reinforce the capability of our player character, their familiarity with their weapon, and their abilities as a soldier. Mirror's Edge uses Faith's arms and legs to help the player understand what Faith is doing as she navigates the world, which helps to show the physicality of the movement and makes the player feel even more cool as they run and jump around. But it doesn't necessarily tell us much about Faith herself, other than the fact that she's a very skilled freerunner. But there are games out there that manage to communicate a lot of character from a first-person view, and one of those games is Blizzard's Overwatch. In terms of game animation, Overwatch is a masterclass in character appeal. This game is all about its characters. Every single member of this cast is unique and just loaded with personality, more than in almost any game I have ever seen. And almost all of that in-game personality is conveyed through animation. There's very little dialogue or plot in the game itself, so animation and character design do the bulk of the heavy lifting in defining who these people are. The way they carry themselves, their victory poses, their emotes, their play of the game glamour shots, it all paints a picture of who these people are. But this game is a first-person shooter, which means that you're going to spend the vast majority of the time seeing nothing but their hands and a weapon. So how have Blizzard's animators managed to continue expressing personality using only these elements? Ultimately, the answer is that they gave every single character their own completely unique set of first-person animations, and built in lots of contrast between how each character goes about things. But let's get into specifics. First, and this is more of a character design point, but I think it's worth bringing up, no matter who you're playing, the animators have made sure that the character's hands and/or weapon are almost always on screen. This not only allows each weapon's unique design to show you who you're playing at a glance, but also showcases each weapon's unique animation, which also just happens to reflect the personality of the weapon's owner. Soldier 76's assault rifle is a finely tuned precision machine. Everything on this weapon moves quickly and sharply, snapping perfectly into place, like a salute. There is not a loose or flimsy part to be found on this weapon. Like its owner, this weapon has a few signs of wear, but it is a well-maintained instrument. Contrast that with Junkrat's launcher, which he clearly built himself from scrap and spare parts. This weapon is rickety and crude, held together by duct tape and a wish, which you can easily see by the way so many of the pieces vibrate and loosely shake. Like none of these pieces were designed to fit together, but it gets the job done. It perfectly reflects Junkrat's slightly unhinged, twitchy enthusiasm. Lucio's sonic amplifier pulses rhythmically like a pounding subwoofer. Bastion's machine gun constantly shudders just a little bit, like an older, cruder generation of machine, and a few of its moving parts, like the hinge on this sight, seem to have gotten just a little looser with age. Just having each weapon visible on screen reinforces personality in so many tiny, subtle little ways. Same goes for each character's idle. Even when the player is just standing there, not doing anything, each character's idle animations and tiny little fidgets are unique and informed by their personality. Junkrat is twitchy and antsy, eager to cause some mayhem. Genji is very contained and controlled, prepared to strike when just the right moment comes. Symmetra's hand movement is delicate and flowing like a dancer, especially the fingers on her free hand to the left. McCree's grip and pistol aim are steady, while May's aim isn't quite as trained. Her weapon bobs and drifts on screen much more. Diva constantly adjusts her grip on her controls, and you can see lots of sharp, tiny nudges of the sticks as she sits there, little twitches like her arms are tensed with focus. She is prepared to react in an instant. And Zenyatta just gently hovers, his clasped hands drifting up and down. And the best part is, unlike almost all of the other characters, he doesn't even have a fidget. He is meditative and completely serene. Characters even breathe differently. Watch the soft rising and lowering of the weapons. Junkrat's breaths are quick and excited. The end of his launcher rises and falls pretty rapidly. Roadhog's breathing is totally relaxed because he doesn't care. Hanzo's breathing is controlled. There is very little drift on that bow. And with Diva, you see almost no drift at all, which makes sense because her mech controls are locked in place. Her breathing wouldn't affect them. But outside the cockpit, the mech's guns do sway gently, as if the machine itself has a little bit of life to it. You can read a lot into this kind of subtlety that may or may not have been intended to convey specific things, but the point remains. They are all different, and they all feel pretty appropriate. But okay, enough about stillness. Let's move around, because every Overwatch character has their own distinct walk, with their own distinct rhythm and quality of movement. Even though you can't see their feet, you can feel how they run by watching the movement of their gun and hands, which is reinforced by some very subtle camera movement. Reinhardt stomps around in his heavy armor like a Jaeger. There's large vertical movement punctuating each stride, and the wide horizontal sway on his hammer sells the shoulder rotation and the twist up his torso as he walks. Genji, on the other hand, runs with rapid, quiet steps, light on his feet like a ninja. There's very little vertical punctuation to his run. He almost coasts along. Zenyatta literally coasts, so you feel no footsteps at all, although you do see a slight increased bobbing in his hands. Just a hint of increased effort for motion. Not to mention a dash of contrast, just to make moving feel different from stillness. Lucio skates around the field rather than running, and you can feel that difference when controlling him. His free arm swings back and forth like a skater, and his gun hand very subtly pulls back and forth in rhythm with it. The punctuated movement on him is much more horizontal than vertical, because, skates. Diva's hands don't show a whole lot of vertical step movement either, just a quick sharp bob, but we do see a much larger degree of movement on the guns outside, suggesting that the cockpit keeps pretty steady even when the mech is stomping around. Junkrat even runs with a slight gallop on his peg leg. See, watch his hands and his gun. Ta-tunk, 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 ta-tunk. With just a few subtle variations in arm animation and camera bob, you can infer quite different styles of walking and mobility on each character. Some characters even have completely unique navigation options, completely custom animation work to accommodate those characters' individual ways of getting around. Lucio can skate on walls, so they've built a system just for him that has him holding out his free hand to brush against the surface he's riding on. Winston, being a gorilla, uses his free front left hand to run, so that front arm plays into his run cycle. Hanzo and Genji can climb walls. Soldier 76 has that classic Call of Duty sprint. Diva can rocket her mech forward. Widowmaker can grapple hook places. And a lot of these are strictly functional in terms of animation, but they serve to create further contrast between these characters, to make them each feel all the more different to inhabit as a player. And it kinda helps you as a player get into that semi-role-playing mindset, where you're just in tune with who that character is, where you feel like them when stepping into their shoes. Like, yeah, I'm Lucio, I'm riding on walls. Hang on, let me just ninja up this here wall. No big deal. Can't catch me, can't catch me, can't catch me. Whoops, I'm over here now.
Later, idiots.
And oh man, let's talk about reloads. Those are a great opportunity for a flair of personality. Soldier 76's reload is quick, trained, and efficient. McCree does a combination of classic cowboy revolver moves, a spin to empty the cylinder, and then a quick flick of the wrist to snap it back into place. Reaper literally throws his guns away and pulls out new ones because he saw it in the Matrix and thinks it makes him look cool. Tracer does a quick stylish spin. Bastion's gun actually opens up to reload internally, and look at how all of these parts feel sort of loose and wobbly, like he's an old printer. Junkrat just slaps the old mag out of its slot, jams a new one in, and yanks the bolt. He's really not careful with that weapon. May, on the other hand, daintily twists this little knob. all set. Roadhog just crams a bunch of loose bolts and springs and crap into his gun because, again, he do not care. Zenyatta doesn't really reload so much as recenter himself. And I can't even tell for sure what Torb is doing, but it looks neat. Or what about their hello emotes? McCree does this casual salute / finger gun.
Hey.
Reaper gives him the old claw.
Hey.
Farah formally salutes.
Greetings.
Just like her mom does.
Hello.
Sombra does this, which is just so perfect.
Hola.
And Bastion does a little robotic hand wave, or if he's in turret form, he waves with his little repair arm instead. Saying hello is one of the only emotes done from the first person in the game, and the animators do not miss this great opportunity for some easy personality.
Greetings.
Man, I could go on talking about all the awesome little touches in this game's first-person animation forever. The beautiful snap to Zenyatta's attacks, which strike this perfect balance between conveying mechanical power and organic looseness. The way that every one of Symmetra's graceful hand movements is informed by a combination of finger-tutting and traditional Indian dances. Ooh, or the overlap and the follow-through that happens on their weapons when you swing the camera around. Have you noticed this? Look at how the gun drags slightly behind as the camera turns, and then overshoots as the camera stops and then settles back into position. It's a neat little touch, right? Well, these are different for every character too. Sombra's holding her top-heavy submachine gun one-handed, so there's a bit more wobble as she tries to keep it steady. McCree's revolver is lighter and he's a sharp marksman, so he actually leads the turn a little bit with the barrel of his gun, so his aim will get to where he's turning before his body does. Hanzo's bow drags behind, making it feel like he turns his body first and then the bow follows after. And Winston's weapon rotates, but the rotation axis happens closer to the top of the weapon because that's where he holds it. But perhaps the most important thing to note here in all of this is that none of this emphasizing of character comes at the cost of gameplay function. Each character may feel unique, but they all handle well, and they all feel great to control. None of the personality touches are overly distracting or prioritized over the immediacy of Overwatch's fast-paced gameplay. Like, just as a really extreme example, take McCree's combat roll. Now, this ability technically involves a quick forward roll, and the animators could absolutely have had the camera do a full 360-degree rotation to mimic the motion of rolling forward in first person, but thank goodness they ultimately decided to have the camera do this little dip instead to suggest the feeling of rolling forward without completely disorienting the player. And I don't want to make it sound like Blizzard is the only studio out there doing this. Other first-person games have succeeded here too. Team Fortress 2's animations don't express nearly as much character, but it did do a lot of the same things. Each character does have their own first-person animation set, and some of them do get some fun little flourishes. Games like Titanfall 2 have mostly functional gameplay animations, but they use the hands and the arms in first person during story moments to give a better sense of physicality to your camera view, and to give your player character some acting moments at key points. Firewatch is a game practically built entirely around first-person interactions like these.
This shale slide is steep. How do you expect me to get down this?
I don't remember it being that bad.
And then there are games like Doom, which not only use the gameplay animations to reinforce the tone of the game and the impatient brutality of Doom Guy, but they also include some bonus moments of first-person animated comedy. I guess the point I'm ultimately trying to make here is that first-person animations can still be a rich opportunity for performance. As animators, just like with every other animation we make for a game character, we have to always be mindful of who that character is as we work. Now, most of us may not have Blizzard's budget or production flexibility, but this sort of characterization is absolutely achievable without those luxuries. I mean, you're gonna be animating all of these moves anyway. Why not give them an extra few minutes of thought? So whenever you're tasked with animating a character, whether that animation is meant to be seen close up, or far away, or even from a first-person perspective, look for every opportunity to let character inform that performance. It only takes a little bit more time and thought to do, and it can have a huge impact. Prioritizing gameplay doesn't have to come at the expense of character. Thank you all for watching, and special thanks to Matt Boehm, who gave a great talk about Overwatch's first-person animation stuff at GDC. It's available for free in the GDC Vault, or you can go check it out on their YouTube channel. And if you happen to be in the mood for more Overwatch animation talk from me, I did make another episode earlier about tracer and pose design, which you can check out here. And consider subscribing if you haven't yet, because I have got more New Frame Plus episodes in the works, but they're kinda big, so just hang in there. I promise I'll try to not keep you waiting too long. Until then,